bustling city of Accra, there lived a beautiful woman named Akosua, who was as beautiful as sunrise over Lake Volta. At 32, she possessed the kind of beauty that made market women pause with their haggling and taxi drivers forget to collect their fare. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany. Her smile could light up the entire Maloka market, and her laugh was as melodious as the evening call to prayers from the mosques down the streets. But here is the thing about Akosua. Despite being blessed with beauty that could stop traffic on the Spinex road, she had a peculiar problem. Men flocked to her like bees to honey, but not one of them had ever bent down on one knee with a ring. They all wanted to be her friend, her bestie, her confidant, her everything, except husband. Akosua, you're like a sister to me, they said, making her eyes twitch with barely contained frustration. You are such a good friend, another declared, completely oblivious to the mental gas she was throwing at him. It was becoming ridiculous. Yes, she was 32 and fabulous. Yes, still attending other people's wedding as a perpetual plus one. Or worse, the designated single friend who caught the bouquet but never the groom. One particular frustrating evening, after yet another man had friend-zoned her, Akosua sat in her cozy apartment in East Legon. What is this way? What's wrong with all these men? She muttered to herself. Am I too beautiful? Too independent? Too what? It was then she remembered the saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Akosua had many talents. She could negotiate a business deal that could make seasoned lawyers sweep with administration. She could dance Zonto like she invented it. She could apply makeup so flawlessly that she could be mistaken for a professional makeup artist. But cooking was her kryptonite. The kitchen was her nemesis. Her idea of cooking was opening a can of corned beef and calling it protein. But desperate times calls for desperate measures, as they say. If food is truly the way to a man's heart, Akosua declared, then I shall cook my way to the altar. She said this with the same determination that Kwame Nkrumah had when declaring independence, completely ignoring the small detail that she couldn't tell salt from sugar without testing both. That very day, she marched to the bookstore and bought every cookbook she could find. Traditional Ghanaian recipes, cooking for beginners, how to cook everything, and even cooking for dummies. Her plan was simple. Learn to cook, catch a man, get married, live happily ever after. What could possibly go wrong? For weeks, Akosua's kitchen became a war zone. She practiced making consommé stew so often that her neighbors started to worry about her mental health. The smell of burning palm oil became as regular as the morning call of roosters. Her smoke detector got more exercise to a gym than someone with a gym membership, beeping so frequently that she eventually just removed the batteries. Practice makes perfect, she would chant, while scraping yet another burnt spot, though her kitchen looked like a crime scene, and her manicured nails were suffering casualties daily. Kwame Asante, a marine engineer who had just returned from a 3 years working offshore on oil rigs. He was tall, handsome, and the kind of smile that could even make the most feminist bake cookies. He was also, unfortunately for Akosua's blood pressure, absolutely gorgeous. They met at a friend's birthday party at Labadi Beach, while every other person was focused on the DJ's latest Afrobeat mix. Kwame was captivated by Akosua's laughter, the genuine joy in her laughter as she told the story about her disastrous attempt at making kelewele the week before. You tried to make kelewele? Kwame asked, joining their conversation. Let's just say fire service wasn't called, but it was a close thing, Akosua replied. Kwame laughed. A rich, warm sound that made Akosua's stomach do interesting gymnastics. I love a woman who is brave enough to experiment in the kitchen. Shows character. If only he knew. Akosua thought, while outwardly maintaining her composure and steeze. By the end of the party, Kwame Kwame asked her for her number. By the end of the week, he asked her to be his girlfriend, and by the end of the conversation, Akosua knew it was time to activate her master plan. "This is it," Akosua announced to her reflection in the mirror after accepting Kwame's proposal to be his girlfriend. "Time to cook like my life depends on it. Because, let's be honest, my love life clearly depends on this." She dove into cooking with the dedication of a PhD student working on their dissertation. Her kitchen became her laboratory, her cookbooks her Bible, and YouTube cooking videos her religion. She practiced making palm nut stew until she could do it blindfolded. When Kwame came over for their first dinner date at her place, Akosua served him a feast that could make a traditional wedding reception jealous. There was jollof rice cooked to perfection, consomme stew that actually tasted like her grandmother's, fried plantain that was golden brown instead of charcoal black, and tilapia grilled to perfection. "Akosua," Kwame said, taking his third helping of jollof rice, "this is incredible. Where did you learn to cook like this?" "Oh, she replied casually. "My grandmother taught me, family recipes passed down generations to generations." Word of Akosua's cooking spread faster in Kwame's friends group than gossip at the saloon. Soon, every dinner invitation came with the hopeful question, "Is Akosua cooking?" She became legendary for dishes that most of their generation had only heard their grandmothers mention. She resurrected recipes that were practically extinct, like abenkwa and aprapransa. "Bro, you hit the jackpot," Kwame's friend Kofi declared. "This girl is properly trained, like old school grandmother level trained, bro." Kwame beamed with pride, his chest puffing out like a peacock's. "I know, right? She's amazing. My mother would love her." If only they knew the truth, that Akosua had nearly given herself a heart attack learning to make those traditional recipes. But the compliments kept coming. Oh, the compliments. And with each one, Akosua dove deeper into her culinary deception. She learned to make fufu from scratch. Her arms ached for days. She mastered the act of making light soup that was actually light, and even attempted the sacred art of making banku that didn't taste like cardboard paper. The turning point came when, during a Champions League match that Kwame was watching with his friends at his apartment, Akosua, playing the perfect girlfriend role, spent the entire Saturday preparing a spread that would make a 5-star hotel weep with envy. There was kelewele spice to perfection, chin-chin that actually was crunchy, meat pie that was flaky on the outside and perfectly seasoned on the inside, and groundnut soup with fufu that had the boys practically licking their bowls clean. "Kwame, my guy," declared Yao, the most vocal of the group, "we need to make this official. This is our wife now." The other guys erupted in agreement, raising their bottles of beer in a toast. "Our wife, our wife, our wife." The nickname stuck. From that day forward, whenever the guys were planning to hang out at Kwame's place, they would ask, "Is our wife cooking?" And oh, that nickname went Akosua's head like the finest palm wine. Every time she heard it, she felt validated in a way that all her professional achievements had never quite managed. Here she was, earning the title of wife through her newfound culinary prowess. She started planning even more elaborate meals, staying up late on Fridays to prepare for weekend gatherings, batch cooking stews and soup to have ready whenever Kwame's friends decided to drop by unannounced. "Akosua, what's happening to you?" her mother Afia asked one Sunday afternoon when she visited and found her daughter elbow deep in palm nut stew preparation, looking like she had been wrestling with the ingredients. "What do you mean, ma?" Akosua replied, stirring the pot with the intensity of a scientist developing a cure for heartbreak. "Akosua, I mean this." Afua gestured around the kitchen, which looked like a cooking show had exploded. "When you were growing up, getting you to even boil water was like pulling a tooth. Now you are cooking like your life depends on it. Look at you, all exhausted." Akusua paused her staring, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. It was true. She was exhausted. She had been cooking almost every day for months now, trying new recipes, perfecting old ones, ensuring that Kwame and his friend never had a meal that was less than spectacular. "I'm just trying to be a good girlfriend, ma," she said, attempting to sound casual while secretly wondering if palm nuts was actually supposed to be this difficult to extract. "A good girlfriend or a slave to your own kitchen," Afia shot back with directness that only mothers possess. "You barely liked helping with Kenki when you were a child. Now you are elbow deep in making palm nuts from the scratch." "People change, Mama," Akosua replied, though she couldn't quite meet her mother's knowing gaze. Afia studied her daughter for a long moment, taking in the exhaustion around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands from all the stirring and pounding, the way she moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency that seemed almost desperate. "Just remember, my daughter," Afia said, "a relationship built on pretense is like a house built on sand. Eventually, the foundation gives way." But Akosua waved her mother's concerns off with a wooden spoon. "Everything is fine, Mama. Kwame loves my cooking, and we are very happy." What she didn't mention was the growing resentment she felt every time she stepped into the kitchen, or how sometimes she caught herself glaring at the stove like it was her personal enemy. After 8 months of culinary excellence, Kwame finally proposed. He did it during one of their dinner dates, right after finishing a bowl of palm nut stew that had taken Akosua 6 hours to prepare. "Akosua," he said, getting down on one knee, right there in the dining room, "you are not just beautiful, you are amazing. You take good care of me. You cook like an angel, and I can't imagine my life without your jollof rice. I mean without you." Akosua's plan had worked. She had cooked her way to the altar. The wedding was so beautiful, a ceremony that would be talked about for years, and a reception where the food, prepared by professional caterers, much to Akosua's secret relief, was praised by everyone. "You are so lucky," her friends told Kwame during the reception. "You married a woman who can cook like our grandmothers used to." Kwame beamed, already anticipating a lifetime of incredibly home-cooked meals. If only he knew what was coming. For the first few months of marriage, Akosua maintained her performance of culinary perfection with the dedication of a method actor. Every morning, Kwame would wake up to the smell of fresh bread or pancakes. Every evening, he came home to find the dining table set with dishes of restaurant standard. "My friends are so jealous," he said to Akosua, not noticing the way her smile seemed a little forced, or how she sometimes stared at the kitchen like it was her prison. He started softly. One evening, instead of the usual elaborate spread, she served him tea and bread. Simple, store-bought naan bread. Kwame looked at the modest meal, then at his wife, confusion all over his face. This looks nice," he said carefully. Akosua just shrugged, sitting down with her own cup of tea. The next day, she served him rice with canned beef. No elaborate stew, no perfectly seasoned veggies, just plain rice and meat from a can. "Babe," Kwame said gently, "is everything okay? Are you feeling sick?" Akosua rolled her eyes at her husband of 5 weeks. "I'm fine. Not every meal has to be a 5-star course experience." Kwame nodded slowly, telling himself that maybe she was just tired from work, or maybe it was woman matters that he was, as a perfect husband, he should not probe too deeply into. The rebellion escalated quickly. Kwame's friends, accustomed to their weekend feast, arrived the following Saturday to find Coca-Cola and biscuits waiting for them. "Hey, our wife," Kofi said, looking around hopefully. "Where is the food?" "This is the food," Akosua replied. The men exchanged glances that could have powered their crack greed. "Are you and Kwame having problems?" Yao asked carefully. "No problems at all," Akosua replied sweetly. The following week, when the friends showed up again, they were served instant noodles. That was when Kwame lost it. Babe, what did I do wrong? Why are we eating all this nonsense? Nonsense? Akosua snapped. If you don't like what I'm serving you, go to the kitchen and cook. Kwame stared at her like she had just suggested he grill wings and flew to Kumasi. Cook? But you're the one who what? Who's supposed to be your personal chef? Who's supposed to spend every waking moment making sure your precious friends have something to stuff their faces with? I married you because I thought you were this amazing traditional woman, Kwame shouted. And I married you because I thought you would love me for more than just my cooking, Akosua shot back. They both stopped, the weight of their words settling between them like dust after an explosion. What followed was the most dramatic equivalent of Cold War. The silent treatment lasted 2 weeks. They passed each other in hallways with acknowledgement levels of strangers in a crowded market. Kwame came home to find Akosua reading a book in the living room. She looked up, nodded slightly, returned to her reading as if he were merely a mildly interesting piece of furniture. Then came the phase where they lived like polite neighbors who happened to share a rent. Good morning, good evening. The water bill came. I'll be working late. Conversations that were functionally necessary, functionally bankrupt. Finally, they reached the ultimate domestic standoff. No food at all in the house. Akosua started eating at fast food joints, spending her evenings at local chop bars, while Kwame began making regular pilgrimages to his mother's house and his sister's homes for meals. On a bright Saturday morning, Mrs. Asante arrived at her son's house carrying large coolers that suggested she meant business. She called both Kwame and Akosua to the living room and sat them down with the authority of a high court judge about to deliver a verdict. You two don't have to fight because of food, she announced without preamble. But ma, we're not fighting, Kwame protested weakly. Mrs. Asante gave him a look that could have frozen the Volta River. I'm a mother. I know things you don't think that I know. She reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone. If you two are not fighting about food, then explain to me why Efua sent me this picture of your wife always eating at local chop bar. Are you eating at my house and your sister's houses like you don't have a home? Mrs. Asante turned to Akosua first. My dear, you don't have to cook every day. My daughter, you can batch cook and store in your freezer, make sauces and keep stock for later use. Cooking doesn't have to be a daily battle. Then she turned to Kwame. And you didn't marry a robot. I trained you to know your kitchen well. You have 2 hands. Enter the kitchen and cook too, when you're at home or when she's yet to return from work. That way, it makes life easier. She gestured to the coolers she brought. This should serve you two for the next few weeks. Until then, I don't want to see any of you in any restaurant, nor any or you, Kwame, in my house or your sister's houses begging for food. Have I made myself clear? Yes, ma. They both replied in unison, sounding like chastised children. After Mrs. Asante left, Kwame and Akosua sat in stunned silence. Finally, Akosua spoke. I need to tell you something, Kwame. I hate cooking. Kwame looked at her like she had just confessed to being secretly married to someone else. But you cook so well, better than anyone I know. I learned to cook just because I thought it was the only way to get a husband, she continued. I spent months teaching, practicing myself until my fingers bled, forcing myself to love something I absolutely hate because I thought that was what you wanted in a wife. Kwame was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. So all those amazing meals were me pretending to be someone I'm not, Akosua finished. I'm sorry, Kwame. I lied to you about who I was. I'm sorry too, Kwame said finally. I'm sorry for expecting you to cook fresh meals all the time without ever offering to help. I'm sorry for making you feel like your worth as a life was just tied to your ability to make jollof rice. They looked at each other for the first time in months. So what now? Akosua asked. Kwame stood up and walked to the coolers his mother had left. Now, we eat mass food and figure out how to be married to the real versions of ourselves. He opened the first cooler, and the aroma that escaped made both their stomach growl audibly. There was palm nut stew, there was palm nut soup, jollof rice, fried plantain, what looked like enough kelewele to feed a small village. They dished out small portions for themselves and sat at the dining table. "Oh, this tastes heavenly," Akosua said, savoring her first spoonful of palm nut soup. "It does," Kwame agreed, "but nothing beats yours." Akosua nearly choked on her soup. "Kwame, I just told you I hate cooking." "I know, but when you cook for me, you make it with love. Even if that love was complicated and a little misguided, that makes it special." They both laughed. And the moral of the story? Well, there are several. Never build a relationship on foundations of lies, no matter how delicious those lies might be. Marriage is a partnership, not a performance. Both people should contribute to all aspects of the household, including cooking. Mother-in-law wielding coolers of food should never be underestimated. Kudos to Mrs. Asante. The real way to someone's heart isn't through their stomach. It's through authentic connection, mutual respect, and really good communication. Though properly made jollof fry doesn't hurt though. Most importantly, be yourself. Be yourself from the beginning, because the person who will love the real you is out there, and they won't expect you to be master chef unless you're genuinely one. Please share, like, subscribe till I bring you another intriguing, interesting African story. God bless you.